Industry is obsessed with the curvature of the earth. Industry is obsessed with the curvature of the earth. Hello, everyone. My name is Al Person. This is the first of the non-biblical kind of responses to some of Dave's comments. And you can go back to the original introductory video where I explain why I'm doing this series, if you want to know, if you just happen to have come across this channel here. Now, Dave makes a couple of comments in his two videos that are just really kind of breathtaking and just need to be answered. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I don't want to see the well poisoned. I agree with Dave's eschatology and his soteriology and his ecclesiology, but I think his cosmology has there's some questions that need to be considered here, and not really his cosmology, but the way he makes the claims when he defends his cosmology, those immodest claims. I just don't think that's the way to do this. Make modest claims. We need to learn to do that. Well, he makes this comment. He says, he says airplanes, when they fly, need to constantly nose down for the curvature of the earth. Now, I've addressed this in a following video here, but I need to just say that's a breathtakingly naive comment to make, truly. If you're on a long straight road that gently curves to the left or the right, and you look back, you can see the curve on the road, but you cannot recall when you made those adjustments around the road. Okay? Now, the curvature of the earth is beyond our sensory perception on the surface. We can't see it. There's actually two groups of people who say you can't see the curvature of the earth. And that is people like me who say the earth is round, and flat earthers. Now, I say on the earth, you can't see it. You can make out some things that are obscured by the curvature, but you can't make it out. Your eyesight would have to be so good. You'd need a full field of vision, and you'd have to be able to read a license plate at 1,000 paces to be able to make that kind of judgment on the surface of the earth. Nevertheless, the airplane conversation is really interesting. Do airplanes accommodate and change and adjust their position for the curvature of the earth? Yes, almost continually in all of their technology, they do that. In fact, there is technology in modern airplanes that reads the spin of the earth before the plane takes off. And that can be done with laser gyroscopes. In fact, the laser gyroscopes on the earth itself can also read the spin of the earth. This is a really, really big challenge if you are if you believe in a geostationary earth, a really big challenge, because that's measurable and you can measure it all over the surface of the earth, which is interesting, where it spins, where the spin is most noticeable at the equator and all the way down. And that's really, really fascinating. So airplanes do it. How often do airplanes adjust for the curvature of the earth in straight flight? Well, about 3 times a second. The autopilot continually adjusts, not only for the curvature of the earth, but for other things. It makes this amazing statement that if a pilot would just continue to fly straight, just fly straight off into space if space existed. Well, no, it wouldn't. No. As you begin to fly straight, the problem is if that were the case, the air would get so thin that the plane would begin to malfunction. But the other point on this is that airplanes and aviation is utterly obsessed with altitude, constantly adjusting all the time. Now, there are reference systems in planes that are well aware of the curvature of the earth. The other elements of this is tied up with the other elements. What complements this is the telecommunication method. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in my testimony, but the type of radio that's used in planes to be able to communicate. Planes also use ground-based technology to locate themselves. There's a technology that's being aged out in favor of GPS called VOR, and VOR is very interesting. It's VHF-based, ground-based technology that planes use to locate themselves. And they even say in the VOR manuals, as you fly higher, you will pick up more channels. Why? Because that particular radio frequency is bound by the curvature of the earth. You'll see a little more about this in my testimony video, which is to follow after this, but I wanted to hop in and start with this one here. Let me just put a couple of images up on the screen here. So ultimately, Dave's conclusion that pilots would have, that pilots must adjust constantly for the curvature, is based entirely on bad information. We need to learn what the other guy is saying before we make our claim. Now here is, let me see, pop this one up here. Of course, these are the various industries rail, telecommunications, satellites, and so on. And yes, satellites exist. Oh, come on, Dave. This is a formula here that's interesting. This is a Python formula. Oh, it's actually a program that you can use to calculate the distance between two places on the Earth, 2 points on the Earth. Now, the reason that I'm putting this up on the screen here is that I have heard friends of mine and others who would hold to a flat Earth position say things like this. They say, well, you know, if you calculate distance from one point to another, you never account for the curve, right? You never account for the curve of the Earth. So, you know, in railway tracks, the railway industry doesn't account for how much rail they'd have to use from this place to this place because of the curve. Or, you know, when electricity wires are put up, they don't account for that. It's always done on a flat surface. First of all, that's mind-snappingly ignorant. That statement is totally wrong. And I'm going to show you that in this formula, which is a formula for measuring the distance between two places on the Earth, that formula only works. The formula is called the Haversine formula, and it requires an entry for the radius of the Earth in order to work, which is interesting. Let's pop this up on the screen here. You will notice that approximately halfway down the page, I might have even made this bigger here. Yes, there is an element of the formula that says rad 6371. What is that? That's the radius of the Earth in kilometers. The formula for locating the distance between 2 points on the globe requires requires the figure for the radius of the Earth in order to be correct. Now, you know, I've heard people say, you know, flat earthers say, well, you know, the whole satellite thing is a hoax and whatever. Dave says the same thing. This is really, really fascinating. I have never heard anyone who says satellites are a hoax who would ever dare to say that the GPS coordinates are inaccurate. Would you? Come on now. You know, on your phone, you can get the GPS coordinates and you know they're accurate. You know, when you pop GPS into your navigation system, it's completely precise. You can see the north-south relationship on the GPS coordinates. Now, by plugging in those coordinates into formulas like this, you can get the distance. Well, how does it calculate the distance that you traveled by road if you're going to get there? It calculates it by accounting for the curve that's in the way. Now, every industry I know accommodates and calculates around the curve continually. No, pardon me. I'm in the technology field, biomed, I'm not sure about, you know, drug companies and so on, if they do. Certainly when they deliver things to your door, they do. But that because they know how long the distance to travel, that's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek comment. But certainly telecommunications, rail, road, everything, all those calculations constantly. Here's another interesting one. You might have seen me flash up a picture. Let me just do this here very quickly as I come back. This is a picture of a military sniper. Yeah, he's got a military kind of weapon here. Now, that's not a police sniper. That's a military sniper. Police snipers don't get trained over the long distances that military snipers do. Well, what's the difference? Well, a military sniper has a calculation sheet with him that requires him to enter his location on the globe and the direction in which he's shooting. Because if he's shooting eastward, he's going to have the gun a little bit higher, because as the Earth spins around, that bullet will engage the appropriate location. So in other words, the bullet's going to be high, it'll spin, bam, and that's how it'll do that. It's a very complex calculation that's performed, but he just has a sheet with him, or he's got an electronic device that does it. If he shoots westward, it's another calculation. Northward, northeast, northwest, another. Always based on the curvature of the Earth, constantly. Police snipers don't need it because the distance is not that great, but military snipers, they do. And it's really fascinating. So when you start making claims about gravity not existing or about satellites or whatever, be careful that you look at what the other guy is already saying, or you're going to look bad and you're going to end up poisoning the well, all right? So this brief video has been called, or I'm calling it, let's put the image back up here. I like this picture here. Industry is obsessed with the curvature of the Earth. Obsessed with the curvature of the Earth. My name is Al Person. Come back for my next video now.